Buongiorno, friends, family, people from all around the world. Lend me your ears because today we're going to explore one of the most beautiful, picturesque neighborhoods in all of Rome. It's across the Tiber River, and hence that's its name, Trastevere, here in the Eternal City. Let me know where you're watching from. And today it's not going to be a history broadcast day because I actually intended on talking a little bit about history. However, three out of the four churches that I was going to teach you the history are closed. And I'm not entirely sure why. It was closed out of their schedule. So we're going to do the second best thing because I think it's actually a blessing in disguise. It is worth to wander aimlessly through Trastevere. So let's do that today. Buongiorno, everyone. As you know, I'm Ariel with Urbanist. If you're new here, thank you for coming. Welcome to these explorations through cities all around the world as we show you the history, food, and culture. Today is going to be a little bit less about history, a little bit less about food, and a little bit more about absorbing the beautiful culture of this neighborhood. This neighborhood, you can think of it as the West Village of Rome, or kind of to be more specific, Greenwich Village of Rome, because it is the bohemian center. Restaurants, tiny little winding streets, and also beautiful cobblestones all around us. Right here, we're at the Piazza Santa Maria. Now, I think at this point, we shouldn't even call the series Mysteries of the Eternal City. We should just call it Mysteries of Santa Maria, because all the places we bump into are Santa Marias, including one of the stops, the main stop for today. After this, we're just going to wander around the Basilica Santa Maria. Now, this Basilica Santa Maria is special because we've seen a lot of frescoes, we've seen a lot of paintings, we've seen a lot of sculpture. But today, we're going to see a different type of artwork in this church: mosaics, bronze, and gold. And this is very interesting because this is more in the Byzantine style than all the other churches we've seen so far. I'm excited to walk inside Basilica Santa Maria de Trastevere. But what does Trastevere mean? Well, Trastevere means beyond the Tiber River. It's kind of like a combination word of beyond the Tiber River. You can think of Trastevere almost as saying Lower East Side in Manhattan, but give centuries of Lower East Side, and eventually Lower East Side would just combine into Lower East Side. Lower East Side. That hasn't happened yet in New York City because Lower East Side is only about 100, 200 years old. But Trastevere is almost 2,000 years old. It dates all the way back to the Etruscans, the mysterious Etruscans that get their namesake from the realm of Etruria, which has subsequently turned into Tuscany, modern-day Tuscany. The Etruscans settled down the Tiber. Tiber is the third largest river in all of Rome. It connects Tuscany all the way to this modern-day state of Lazio that includes Rome. However, the Etruscans were pushed out eventually by this Italic tribe that ended up becoming Rome. And this ended up becoming the backwater neighborhood. This was the commercial area, the place where white-collar workers lived, where merchants lived. And in ancient Roman times, being a merchant wasn't really the best job. And then, especially in medieval times, it was even a lower-class job. So this was kind of the shady neighborhood, especially at night. No one would really come here and hang out late into the nighttime in medieval times in Trastevere. And that continued on all the way to the 1800s. But then in the 1900s, it started becoming a bohemian neighborhood. The bells are ringing. Let's go into Basilica Santa Maria. So this is Piazza Santa Maria. And Piazza Santa Maria is kind of like one of the hubs of this neighborhood. You can think of I'm going to make a lot of analogies to Greenwich Village because I think it's very apt when you talk about this neighborhood. And you can think of Piazza Santa Maria as the Washington Square Park of Trastevere. It's not as packed today, and I think it's because it's a working day. So a lot of people we see here are mostly tourists. Hello, Brenda. Hello, Cynthia. I'm just going to pronounce all your names Italian, if you don't mind. Hello, Bernadette. Hello, Bari. Ines, Gretchen, and Gail, and Cindy. Bienvenue a Trastevere, a Basilica de Santa Maria. Let's go inside. So this dates back to the 1200s. It was significantly restored in the 1600s during the Renaissance era. Now the cool thing upon walking into Basilica de Santa Maria is seeing all these wonderful slabs from ancient Roman times all the way to the Renaissance. We see ancient Latin over here. Tuba. I'm going back to New York City in the 24th. Here we see ancient Latin. And I love the sound of bells as well. Donald, yep, yet another Santa Maria. This is no longer urbanist. This is now called Santa Maria. Santa Maria Facebook Live. Gretchen, yes, Italian. As of course an Italian name. So for the rest of this broadcast, I will be saying all your names in an Italian accent just to celebrate this very authentic neighborhood that used to be the backwaters of Rome. And great idea to compare Trastevere to Greenwich Village. Yes, there's so many similarities. And we're going to continue to see them as we wind through the streets. It's so cool seeing all these stone slabs. Now the thing is with ancient Latin is that they didn't have too much punctuation. And another interesting thing about Latin is that there's no set order to the words. So for example, take Julius Caesar's Veni, Vidi, Vici. I came, I saw, I conquered. In Latin, you can say Vici, Veni, Vidi. Or you can say Vidi, Veni, Vici. Or Vidi, Vici, Veni. You can just put it in any combination you want to and it all makes sense in Latin. But it doesn't really make sense when you translate it to English or modern day Romance languages. Because even if you say in Spanish, or you say in modern Italian, or you say in English, I conquered, I saw, I came, it just doesn't sound right. It doesn't sound like the proper order. So keep in mind when you're reading these like Latin slabs, it's a little bit kind of intense to read them because you can literally put them in any order. And also they don't have too much punctuation. So this ancient Latin language is more kind of direct to the point. It's not as the way it can get poetic is not quite the same as in English or in Spanish or Italian or et cetera, et cetera. Robert, challenge accepted. So is that where you're from? You're from Oskaloosa. Oh yes, you're from Oskaloosa. Also let me know where you're watching from. If you told me many times before, tell me again because I will be pronouncing every single name in Italian today, including where you're from. So let me know where you're from. We're going to continue seeing the stone slabs. I love your tours. You're great. Thank you so much, Gail. Hello, Gwen. Did you know there are more than 900 churches in Rome? Yeah, Kate, it's mind-blowing how many churches in Rome. I think this is the city I've done the most amount of churches in. I thought I did a lot of churches in Paris, where I did like maybe 6 or 7. But here, there's a lot more churches. You know, in New York, there's maybe 5 very historically significant churches. But here, there's 900, and although there's 900, at least maybe 50 are pretty historically significant. All right, let's take a walk inside. Oh, you're from Philadelphia. Oh, molto bene. I mean, no disrespect to Italians. I'm just doing a very stereotypical accent. I can also do a very stereotypical New York accent, all right? But today will be stereotypical Italian. People letting me know where you're from. You're from Iowa. Oh, prego. So prepare yourselves. 1200s, however, right above is a beautiful ceiling that was made by one of the most richest families in Rome. And they hired the perfect man for it to make a beautifully gold-plated, bronze-tipped, copper ceiling. Super, yes, oh, interesting. Oh, Donald, challenge accepted. Oh, you're from Saskatoon. And Saskatchewan. Oh, perfecto. From the great realm of Canada. Now, these mosaic flooring was made during the Renaissance era. However, they were recreating the original mosaic flooring that was found here back in the 1200s. And it is rumored that this dates all the way back to the 3rd century, at least this pattern that they recreated. And I think this is by far one of the most beautiful mosaics that we've seen so far in the great city of Rome. Yeah, wow, indeed. So right in the center, we have a portrait of Jesus Christ. Now, this is rumored to be one of the oldest depictions of Jesus Christ. Oh my God, lit up. So at night, they also light this mosaic up. So all throughout the night, I highly recommend coming to this church because the light stays on towards the night. And look at that, mosaics of Jesus Christ, the apostles right beside him. Where's the guy with the key? The guy with the key would be St. Peter, also known as the Rock, the original Rock, not Dwayne Johnson. You can see the indents of centuries of walking. Let's take a closer look. So we have ancient Greek. Ancient Greek was one of 2 languages used in the ancient Christian church. So there's either Latin, Greek, or actually 3. Aramaic was the 3rd. Look at this beautiful canopy. Now, I'm not entirely sure. I don't think this is a people canopy, if I'm correct. It's beautiful nonetheless. And they're in the period of the Great Ravenna mosaics. Ooh, interesting. And right above, we have a very interesting depiction of the Virgin Mary, La Virgen Maria in Spanish. She is not a fresco painting or a mosaic. She is donned in painted copper. Oh, Marilyn, you're from Florida. Ah, perfecto. Patricia, io adoro Roma. Visite più giornos a Susi belle. Oh, I'm so glad you're from, you enjoyed Rome. That's wonderful to hear. And George, you're from New York. And Los Angeles. Oh, qué bien. Perfecto, magnifico. Actually looks a little bit cooler when the lights are off. Look at that ceiling. Yep. A lot of people consider this the top most beautiful, one of the top beautiful basilicas, churches in all of Rome. And it's almost in all the top 5 lists that you'll find online from Italians and from tour books, etc. And look at that organ, beautiful. Let's take a look at it from the other side. Good morning, Patty. Welcome. So here we have a depiction of St. Peter the Rock, because Peter means rock, and Peter was the rock of Jesus, or of Christianity, or of God, and he was crucified upside down. And you can see they're kind of depicting the old St. Peter's Basilica also, I think. And they did a lot of that kind of mishmash between Renaissance and ancient Roman. There we have another very, very old depiction of Virgin Mary. Here we have some Corinthian columns, very typical from ancient Roman times. So as we saw yesterday in the Roman Forum, almost all these basilicas all around the Western world, including Roman Catholic, Eastern Orthodox, have based a lot of their architecture on ancient Roman basilicas, because basilicas were not invented by Christianity. They were a temple from pagan ancient Romans. So, wow, mind-blowing church. Definitely one of the most beautiful that I've seen so far on this journey. And you've seen almost all the churches that I've personally visited myself during this trip. This is Basilica Santa Maria de Trastevere. So if you just go off Santa Maria, you can't do that like you can do in other cities, maybe Paris, London, or New York, where you can just know the saint's name, because here there's countless Santa Marias. So Santa Maria de Trastevere. Now, let's walk around. And I can Google this question, but I would love to hear from you. What's the difference between church, basilica, and cathedral? So as far as I'm correct, there's only one cathedral? No. I actually don't really fully know the differences. Hey, I don't fully know the differences whatsoever. But if anyone could let us know in the comments. That's something I haven't researched yet. But basilicas are kind of, they are designated by the Roman Catholic Church. I think they go through a process of being accepted by either cardinals or something. The high-end church actually goes through a process. And recently in New York City, a new basilica is Basilica of St. Patrick's. Some old St. Patrick's in Nolita, in the neighborhood of Little Italy, is a basilica now in New York City, a Roman Catholic basilica. I'm not entirely sure why there's multiple basilicas here. So if anyone knows, let me know. And hello, Jackie de Seattle. Bienvenuti. And hello, Fran. Ciao, ciao. And hello, Mike. Again, let me know where you're watching from. Comment if you want me to pronounce your name in Italiano. This is a New York interpretation of Italiano, okay? So if you're Italian, please take no offense. So you wouldn't see an obelisk in this piazza because, as I mentioned earlier, this was mostly a very backwater kind of lower end neighborhood. Only until almost the 1990s, until it became very touristy, similar to Greenwich Village in that context. Greenwich Village, by the 1980s, it started really going on the up and becoming a very popular neighborhood. And Trastevere underwent that same transformation. Look at this gorgeous collection of street art. Amazing stickers. There I think we have an interpretation of Jesus. Look, Here we have kind of like a simplified centurion. Oh, this is amazing. Oh, I love this. This is wonderful. Who is this person? That's so cool. Oh, that carrot is very angry. Wow, I love this. So Trastevere is known for its winding streets and its restaurants, trattorias, osterias, inotecas, and cafes. And look at how picturesque this is. So again, pro tip, always go to the side streets for the restaurants, because the best ones tend to be just one street over. And here we are, the emoji I used for today's Facebook Live broadcast of Vespa. Because every time I see a photo of Trastevere, it's with a huge Vespa. And Christine, yes, that did look like a Matisse. Yeah, you're right. That's why I really like it personally as well. Oh, look at this beautiful cafe. And the soup can was Andy Warhol. It was kind of like an Italian Andy Warhol. They renamed Campbell to some Italian name with the C. Here we can see the backside of the Basilica with the huge tower. And this Basilica is huge. Look how far back it extends. Great alley. Let's walk through this alley. Again, there's no history today because 3 out of the 4 churches I was going to visit are closed. So feel free to ask me anything. We're just wandering the streets of Trastevere. Here's the Museo de Roma in Trastevere. Beautiful museum. I was strolling earlier, and that man who's walking that very huge pit bull, that pit bull was screaming very aggressively to other people. So that's why I'm standing away. First time I saw that in Italy. I see that a little bit more often in New York City. What's for tomorrow, George? Oh, George. I'm glad you asked. Tomorrow, we're going to get deep into history. We're going to learn about the volcano that exploded in front of an ancient Roman town. A town that was very popular. That was kind of the pleasure center for many high-end aristocrats of ancient Rome. And one man who became consul, who witnessed the entire ordeal. That town is Pompeii, underneath Mount Vesuvius. Stay tuned tomorrow, 3 p.m. Rome time, for Pompeii. Let's keep on walking through Trastevere. And let me know where you're watching from. I'll pronounce your country or city of origin in my best Italiano accent. Okay, your name is Italian. Oh, Caterina. Oh, bellissima. Hello, Danielis. The key to the Italian accent, if you're a Spanish speaker, is to just say the word in Spanish, but just extend it. Just let it roll longer. There we go. You got Italiano accent. There we go. There's a statue. We have a very similar statue in front of St. John the Divine. And I think it depicts a homeless Jesus. Oh, interesting. St. John the Divine, it depicts one of the saints that went through stigmata. This is Homeless Jesus by Timothy Schmalz. George, we're going to be there, we're going to learn, we're going to see, we're going to touch, we're going to smell, we're going to do everything in Pompeii. Stay tuned. You said we can ask you anything. What's the meaning of life? That is a great question. Should clarify before I bet anything about Rome, but we're already in this territory. So what is the meaning of life? The meaning of life is to be here in the now, walking on these very streets of Rome, enjoying these very beautiful views as we look down at the sunlit facades of these gorgeous buildings and the cobblestone streets, enjoying all the beautiful smells that completely entice us into the beauty of life in this very moment in time. It's not the future nor the past, it's the now. That is the meaning of life, ladies and gentlemen and people of all genders. Thank you so much for asking. Pasta and good wine. That is another great question. That is another great answer to the meaning of life. Oh, look, there's so many options here to walk through. I'm just going to show you what road you can take, the multiple roads you can take while walking through Trastevere. Italian is like Spanish, but you're singing or mad. And lots of hand gestures. You're right. Yeah, there's more gesticulating in Italian than there is in Spanish. Spanish there is, especially if you're Puerto Rican or Dominican. But Italian definitely has a lot of gesticulation. Another gesticulating Spanish culture is Argentinian. Donald says, good answer. Oh, thank you, Donald. Kim, you say the feeling you get when standing on the street looking up at the volcano in Pompeii is indescribable. Just to think back at what happened. And we're going to find out the mystery of why so many people died and why did they die so damn quickly. I can't wait for the tour. I'm so excited to give it to you. Stay tuned. Oh, look at these beautiful restaurants just on this beautiful side. There's great pizza. Roman style. You also find pizza in bakeries. And we have our first official Urbanist Orange Vespa. So I got this specifically for this tour. Stay tuned. The meaning is to be awesome and always keep on exploring. Indeed, you are right. That's another great answer to that age-old question. It's a prosciutteria. Oh, interesting. A place where they make a lot of prosciutto. We got a gelateria. And here is a wine bar, Inoteca. Inoteca is kind of like a combination of a wine store and a place to drink wine. Kind of like those beer stores in the US. They also sell beers in these wine bars. It's not like a wine bar in the US where it's to serve wine and bites that tend to be very expensive actually. Here it's like a wine store and a place to sit down to drink wine. And it's great because in the Inotecas, a lot of them the people who run them, the people who are working in them, are lovers of wine, and that's why they opened up an establishment like that. So they'll know a lot about wine and the freshest type of wines and how to combine them with other types of food. But if you want more elaborate combinations with wine and food, then you have to go to an osteria. In osteria, some places kind of call themselves osteria, even though they're truly not osterias. So the term has been a bit loosely interpreted here in Rome, at least. I assume if you go to the smaller towns in Italy, osterias are still places where the person is there to host you. Almost all the food is fresh. The wine is of the season, and he matches the wine with the food of the season. And here's a place where we see osteria, though sometimes it's not a true osteria, sometimes. Claudia, you have lots of family in Italy. One of my aunts owns a hotel in Montecatini, Treme, not far from Florence. Oh, wonderful. Oh, that's so cool that you have family there. I hope you come here often. Oh, wow. Okay. So I'm going to wrap around here because I want to show you that wall down here. But we have to take a small detour down this beautiful alleyway. Look at how gorgeous this is. If you want to see this alleyway, press that heart button. One film, most recent film that has been fully filmed here on Trastevere is To Rome with Love, directed by Woody Allen. I personally didn't like the movie too much, but it's beautifully shot and it takes place all in Trastevere, so it's nice to just see the scenery. And so much graffiti is a comment here in Italy, yes, but to me personally, from what I've seen, it doesn't look too bad. It kind of adds to the charm of the city. George, that is exactly the place I'm going to. That's going to be the main spot because I'm very interested in the mystery schools of ancient Rome. So stay tuned for that. Wow. And remember this site because we're going to see very similar streets when we walk the streets of Naples on Saturday. Hey, Ner! Oh, I'm so glad you were able to tune in live. Thank you for watching. Thank you so much for all the likes yesterday on all the photos. Nadine, bienvenue. Look at this. Wow. Beautiful. Now, when in this beautiful neighborhood of Trastevere, look up and see the street names. The street names, this one we see here is Vicolo de Bologna. Now, a lot of these street names are named after the goods that were sold here. Because Trastevere, as I mentioned, is right by the Tiber River. And it was a commercial neighborhood. So a lot of the people who lived here owned businesses on the first floor. And those businesses end up being the names of the streets because all of the same businesses would center around each street. So you would have a street with products from Bologna, and then you would, I passed the street earlier called Via Tabaccheria, which means Tobacco Street. Let's check out this beautiful car. And it's so popular in the evening here in Trastevere, we find it difficult to eat without booking in advance. Yeah, if you want to eat after 7:30 p.m. in Rome, either you have to line up and go to a place where they don't have reservations and you have to just wait in line, or you have to make reservations. And reservations here, I don't think there's that many apps. You still have to call to make a reservation. Beautiful Fiat. That's what you would see rummaging around through the streets of Trastevere back in the 1950s and 60s. Will I be showing any subway trains in Rome or the Vesuvia, which goes right to Mount Vesuvius? I'm not entirely sure about the Vesuviana. I might go there. That might be interesting. Trains in Rome, you know, there's not much to show. Doesn't have that deep of a history. So not really, but maybe on Instagram stories I'll take a few videos. So be sure to follow Instagram stories. Yeah, I love that little car as well. All right, let's see what we find here. This is just so picturesque. This is great for photos. I gotta come back here and take a bunch of photos. Hello, Kerem! Gretchen, welcome. Oh, wow. Hola, Kerem. No excuse for what, George? This is just gorgeous. I'm just utterly surprised by how beautiful this place is. Oh, wow. This place called Pim's Good, I heard is good, hence the name. It was recommended by Rick Steves and also a few other books. Ooh, let's walk into this church. Let's check it out. Let's check it out.
Yeah. No, Joy Forest.
Get him. It reminds you of Old San Juan. Yeah. Italy reminds me a whole lot of Puerto Rico. Rome reminds me a whole lot of Puerto Rico. A lot of things look very similar. That beautiful feeling when you have the church all to yourself. Have you sat through a mass? I saw a mass for a few minutes. I kind of just inadvertently stepped into one. I was sitting down. There was beautiful music playing, and all of a sudden the priest pops up, and everyone starts praying. So yeah, partly, but I did not sit through an entire mass. And you know what? I was actually thinking about that earlier. I've been tempted to maybe sit through a mass at some point during this trip. And here we have the Appian Wall, the wall that surrounds Rome and its 7 hills. The largest ruin in this city. Let's see what's down there. I think we'll be approaching Giancarlo, which is one of the hills in Rome. There's 12 out of 7 hills in Rome. So historically there's 7 hills, but in actuality there's about 12. And here the streets are a little bit larger, not much going on here. But this place is called Galleria Corsini. And it's a collection of art started in the 1800s. Thanks, says Doug. You really want to get here in a few years. I hope you do. The flights are very inexpensive now from the US, especially if you're in the major cities like New York or LA or Atlanta. Very inexpensive. I spent $306 round trip, direct flight from New York City all the way to Rome. And to go to Naples via train cost a mere €22 first class. That's crazy inexpensive. And Brenda, yes, I'll reveal the price of my Airbnb. It was only $1,100 for 17 days. 17 days, $1,100. And I decided to stay in one that was a little bit more expensive because I wanted to stay close proximity to the tourist area. So I stayed in the Vatican area. I'll be doing a tour my last day here on the 24th. Stay tuned, and I'll be posting the exact listing. So it's been a very, very inexpensive trip overall. same price as Paris, because Paris was, I also spend the same amount of money. A lot of trucks passing through here. This tiny street. And now let's make our way to the Tiber. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask about Rome. If you're curious about anything. These gelaterias are very full. A lot of people love going to these gelaterias. Here we're kind of backtracking. And let's make our way to the Tiber. Is it cheap this time of year? I'm assuming yes. I'm assuming the price is lower because it is October. October's still kind of peak time for Rome. I've especially noticed a lot of Germans here. And it's because countries like Germany, and I think there's a few other countries that have most of their vacations in October. Unlike in Paris where the French have their vacations in August. So it is peak time, but not as popular as June or July. Sharon, and while the ancient sites and museums are wonderful to visit, for me it's wandering that's most fun. Likewise, I love wandering too. Oh, look at this beautiful store. The flashing crosses on buildings, no, they are not medical facilities. They are pharmacies, but not in the same way you would think a pharmacy in the U.S., where it's kind of a pharmacy meets a convenience store, right? U.S. has Walgreens, CVS, a bunch of these places that are kind of like mega pharmacies to the Europeans. And the pharmacies here is strictly just like medical, over-the-counter medication, creams, stuff like that. Now, the green medical symbol in the U.S. means something different, especially if you go to the states of legal marijuana. Here, it's not marijuana, it's just a pharmacy. Yes, wandering is the best. The last time I was in Rome, we had no good and wandered off the map. Oh, it's amazing. And you met some locals with Vespas and they drove us back to your hotel. Oh, that's wonderful that you did that. Get him, what's the best restaurant I visited so far? That's a tough question because I've had so much great food. But I love this place called Pasta Antiatico. I'll post it. I forgot the name. The names here are not so kind of in your face as they are in the US. And they all tend to have very similar names. But it's a little pasta restaurant right by the Vatican. It's super delicious, inexpensive. The service is very friendly. Highly recommend it. I'll be posting it in the comments afterwards. And I tried here great vegan, not vegan, but it was like a fresh health food place called Fresco here in Trastevere. Amazing food. A lot of the ingredients are from Italy. Fresh food, but it's mostly like salads and fresh greens and stuff like that. are all of the main... Ooh, were you asking, Brenda? I've never done NYC tourist stuff, and I've been here for nearly 20 years. Isabel, yeah. Did I read Pliny the Younger? Yeah, George, stay tuned. Stay tuned tomorrow. Don't worry, one step at a time. The flashing crosses on the buildings. Oh yeah, I already answered that. This place is full. They're full with Italians. That's how you sometimes could tell they're good. So if you look at those restaurants, that restaurant we just passed by, lots of people there, almost everyone speaking Italian. That's when you know the place is probably good. I would say most likely good. You can tell because there's some other restaurants that tend to be full and it's a lot of tourists, naturally. And those places sometimes tend to be more tourist traps because they have the menus in English, or they have the menus also in German and French, or sometimes even Chinese as well. And they use that to compensate for the lack of quality in food. So it's hard to kind of find both ways. There's one example I popped in that was super tourist friendly, had menus in a bunch of languages, extremely great service, and it also was great food. But I only found one of them that had like all of that together. And it's a beautiful day in Roma, indeed it is. Ooh, look at this street. Now this is a street. Lobo, what can I tell about the graffiti? Well, I don't know too much about the graffiti of Rome, but I can tell you there's a difference between graffiti and street art. And there's a lot of political graffiti here, more so than I've seen in New York City. I'll see if I can point out one. Maybe there's one here. But this are tags. That is street art. Graffiti, street art. Graffiti, street art. Street art, graffiti. Street art, graffiti. That's how you can tell the difference. Graffiti is a scribble. There's not that many masterpieces, which are kind of the fat, bubbly letters. But here's one of them. I haven't seen too many in Rome. And they tend to be very political. I can't see anything here, but I think what's erased over here is probably a political message, if I were to venture a guess. It looks like it. Someone doesn't like the street artist painting here, so they tagged above the street artist. And that sometimes happens in the street art world, where a street artist from another country comes over here, starts painting their work, and people don't like him for any reason, and then they start scribbling above it. But if they do really respect the street artist, you don't see any scribbles above it. Like Basquiat's graffitis in New York City. No one has ever graffitied, well, not graffiti, street art. His street art, no one has ever graffitied on top of it. Okay, here we go. Tiber River. I'll show you kind of the context of why Trastevere has formed in its kind of gritty, grungy way, as opposed to the more central parts of Rome. And it's all due to the geography of this neighborhood, which lies in its name beyond the Tiber River. Trast, which means beyond, and Tebere, Tiber. Let's cross the street here. Precarious position to cross the street. Buongiorno, Naomi. Benvenuti a Trastevere. And here, ladies and gentlemen, we have the the Tiber River. And you're so welcome, Lobo and Susana. Welcome. So, the Tiber. Tiber is the third longest river in all of Italy, and it was the mythological starting point for ancient Rome. It started a tiny little town and ended up becoming the dominant empire of the world. However, why did the Romans come here and not go to Ostia Antica, which is the ancient port out by the sea? Well, it's because rivers are very crucial, and in the early days of Rome, Rome was not quite an international city as it later became, having relationships with all of huge swaths of the Western world, even as far as Africa and as far up north as Iberia and the Picts in Scotland, and also the Vikings later on. No, when ancient Rome started, before the age of kings, when Rome was a tiny little nation, it was dependent on relationships with the Etruscans to the north in modern-day Tuscany, and to the other types of tribes, the Itals, the Latins, the Lombards, etc., 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 the ancient Venetians. And in order to have relationships with your nearby neighbors, this was the main artery. However, because this goes all the way up to Tuscany, the Etruscans were the very first ones to conquer this land. And ancient Rome kind of rebelled against the Etruscans, who used the Romans, apparently, according to legend, as slaves. Now, the Tiber River, if you notice, no one's hanging out down here. There's no one on the side streets of the Tiber River. Tiber River is a very virulent river. It's not like the Seine that tends to be much more calmer, or like the East River, also in New York City, or the Hudson that tend to be calmer. There's parts of the East River that's really intense, as we talked about Hell Gate before. But here, this river is more intense. It's been known to constantly flood, up and down, and some neighborhoods would be completely flooded. Specifically, two different neighborhoods, the Jewish ghetto, which we're across right now, somewhere around here, somewhere around that area, and Trastevere, and that's why they were the very low-end neighborhoods. However, Rome is also a very swampy land. The entire state of Lazio is a swampy territory of Italy. It might not seem like that as we see a bunch of city all around us. But just like the edges of New York were also very swampy and we can't really tell anymore, same thing with Rome. Why did they build on swampy land? Well, one reason the ancient Romans might have been build their own town in the swampy land was in order for protection against the Etruscans, protection from other rival foreign groups who might have wanted to conquer. Another factor is there might have been plentiful resources for access to water and access to other agricultural needs. However, I think that's one of the reasons why people don't hang out by the Tiber. It's because it's still very swampy. The thing is, the swamp might not be visible, but still here. It still affects how the atmosphere is around, and also the mosquitoes. So I think that's why a lot of people don't also hang out by the Tiber. And it's much deeper than the Seine, so it's much more separated from the actual street level. And again, I'm making an educated guess, so if anyone is an expert in this, let me know. But my educated guess is that also the separation is a factor of why no one really hangs out by the banks of the Tiber. But Pope Sixtus, the great urban planner of Rome in the Renaissance time, commissioned in order to build the banks of the Tiber River in order to stop the constant flooding of these neighborhoods like the Jewish ghetto, Trastevere, and a few others. Campo de Fiori also would constantly get flooded. Thank you everyone so much for watching. That brings me to the end of this tour of Trastevere. Stay tuned. Tomorrow I'll be exploring Pompeii at 3 p.m., learning about the mysteries of Mount Vesuvius, the ancient mystery schools that were living in Pompeii and then buried underneath the ash And why did everyone die in Pompeii rather quickly? Because all around the world there are volcanoes. And most volcanoes that happen, there's usually only a death toll about 20 people. 20, 30, maybe 200. That's the maximum. But in Pompeii, thousands died instantly. Why? We'll find that out tomorrow. Thank you everyone so much for tuning in. Highly recommend visiting Trastevere. Keep being awesome and always keep on exploring. Arrivederci, amici. Ciao, amici.